Good day. Welcome to Dutchess Talk Radio. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Shuck Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, a house that service built, by Tompkins Mahopac Bank, by Lipolis Electric. Don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard all through the Hudson Valley. Also by White Plains Hospital and by Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk. They work for you all throughout the Hudson Valley and beyond as well. Here on the Cup of Joe Political Show, we are joined by Dutchess County Legislator Ed Hauser. Ed Hauser represents the 23rd District, encompassing Pauling, Beekman, and East Fishkill, a pretty wide-ranging swath of the southern part of the county, basically all the way across from the Hudson River to the Connecticut line. Ed Hauser, welcome to Dutchess Talk Radio as we move now into the final quarter of 2021, set our sights on a new year, 2022. How prevalent is COVID in Dutchess right now? And have the numbers gone up since Labor Day? Because the big concern was with the Labor Day weekend gatherings 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road, we'd see a spike again. Where does that stand countywide from the latest you have?
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. The latest I have is that the numbers have stabilized. There was a short spike, and Dutchess County right now is at 76.6% vaccinated.
Is that good enough?
It's not good enough, but it's certainly a lot better than many other areas of the country. And, people here feel reasonably safe. I believe there are about 23 active cases right now, I believe. That's not good, but it's certainly not a surge like other places have experienced.
Mm-hmm. Vaccine-wise around the county, you talked about the numbers where people are. Can we expect that many more people of those who have not yet been vaccinated will eventually get a shot? Or do you subscribe to the philosophy like a lot of people I know subscribe to? And I'm not saying this is right, wrong, et cetera. It's what a lot of people I know think, that if you wanted to get vaccinated, well, you would have done so by now. You could just go walk into CVS or Walgreens, et cetera, go see your doctor and get it done. If you don't want to get vaccinated and you haven't done it as of yet, you likely never will.
Well, I hope people are listening and learning. I'm a student of history, and I recently just read an article in the Smithsonian about the fight against diphtheria. And the parallels are remarkable. It's just a devastating disease, except it was affecting primarily children. And it took a while, first of all, to develop the vaccine because they didn't have the tools that we have today. I mean, the big difference is the supercomputers and all of the labs able to talk to each other. And, I hope that people will listen to their neighbors, and most importantly, if they listen to their healthcare providers. I'm optimistic that people will continue to get vaccinated as they become more comfortable with it, as they learn more about it. And, the vast majority of people I know who are vaccinated had minor discomfort when they got the shot, but after that, there's a great sense of relief that there's some protection.
I've had people say to me too, John, you allowed yourself to be experimented upon because it takes years and decades to develop a really effective vaccination that we know works. I have a feeling that you would have something contrary to say to that.
Well, what people don't understand is that the development of this vaccine didn't happen in a year. They've been working on this this process for probably over 25 years. It started with SARS and Zika and Ebola and all these similar diseases, and the criteria, the protocols, the chemistry for developing the vaccine was well along in the developmental stage. It only had to be fine-tuned to work with the coronavirus. And, I have a daughter-in-law who is a infectious disease control nurse, and I have a niece who is I can't even say it. She's a virus she's a doctor, she's a PhD, and she studies viruses.
Uh-huh.
And, I listen to them because they know the science, and they're very comfortable with the vaccines.
Mm-hmm. Is something you just brought up makes me wonder, maybe we're not getting this information or publicizing this fact enough. You talked about how this vaccine has been in development for a quarter of a century, yet we never hear that. Maybe if we got that message out more, that would allay many fears.
Yeah, I think that the news cycle tends to concentrate on what's happening today, but it takes a little more time to have a historic knowledge of things. And, you have to read. You can't just get your information off Facebook. Most of what I've learned about the vaccine and the research that went into it, I got from reading the Smithsonian and the Atlantic and the New Yorker and magazines like that, which takes some time. I mean, you have to sit down and read an article. It'll take you an hour. So.
Mm-hmm. Ed Hauser, County Board here in Dutchess on Dutchess Talk Radio. He represents the 23rd District, Pauling, Beekman, and the East Fishkill area. Ed Hauser, you've already mentioned schooling. Schools across Dutchess County, we are a few weeks into the new school year. How are they operating overall? What kind of combination of in-person learning do we have and hybrid learning and those who are just staying at home and are using a remote option?
Well, I have three grandchildren in the local schools, so they're my primary source of information. And it seems things are working very smoothly. The teachers are just doing a phenomenal job. It's obvious, it's clear that in-person learning is the best way to learn, and the school systems and the teachers and the staff have embraced that and have tried to include students as much as possible. I think, at least in the Pauling district, I think the remote learning is infrequent. It's there. I mean, obviously, if people need it or if a child is sick and they're stuck at home, they have that opportunity, but the school is doing everything they can. I'm not as familiar with the schools in Beekman and East Fishkill, but from what I read, they seem to be doing the same thing, and I commend them for the job they're doing.
Now, we see athletically, it seems like everybody athletically across the county and across Section 9, they seem to want to have a season as normal as best as possible, and yet we still see some pauses like the Poughkeepsie football team.
Right.
How prevalent is the mindset around the county of that we just have to proceed with our lives as if, I don't want to say as if nothing happened, but try to make it as normal as possible, since the last 2 years have been anything but?
I think it's clear that, we're all going to live our lives differently because we've learned how to deal with viruses. And, one of the good results of this is that, there was a very low flu incidence in the last year because people were masked up, and it's the way you protect yourself from the flu, which is a virus, is exactly the same way you protect yourself from COVID. You try not to breathe air that other people have breathed out by using a mask or distancing. Wash your hands a lot and use sanitizers, and as a consequence, people are not getting common colds and the flu. So it's a serious learning exercise, and so it's changed it. But to go back to the sports, two things that have been brought to my attention, and this is anecdotal. I don't have any statistics on it, but I know that a couple of my grandkids' games have been canceled because they don't have enough drivers. And our local Hannaford supermarket has some pretty bare shelves, and the staff there tells us that it's because the company can't find the drivers. So there's a national shortage of drivers, and it's affecting our lives locally. And I hope that people will look to that as a well-paying job, and people will get back behind the wheel.
And that is the Hannaford on 22 in Pauling. As soon as you get into Pauling, northbound, going out of Patterson, right? Before you get to Pauling High School. Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, And that is a major problem across the country, the lack of truckers. And you go into a Starbucks and things that you would normally expect there, like a big, tall, venti cup. Sorry, we don't have them for like a week now because we can't get anything delivered here. And this is something that has become obviously an appendage of the pandemic. That's something we have to deal with, among other things, on a day-to-day basis in life. As we move along towards the end of the year, we have the county budget for 2022. That's a hot topic, a hot issue, a hot mic issue right now. 2022, is the budget kind of getting back to normal, knowing that 2021, certain things had to be done to adjust?
It is. And I have to give tremendous credit to Marcus Molinaro, our county executive, and our finance staff. They kept the county running. There were I'm not aware of any serious diminishing of services. People picked up the shovel and did what they had to do to get the job done. They did have they had a voluntary retirement that reduced the county payroll quite a bit. But on the other side, the sales tax revenue has been very good, primarily because people are buying online. Even when they're not getting out to the brick and mortar stores, they're buying online. And I certainly encourage everybody to get out and shop locally if they can, because these people that run these small businesses have had a really tough go, and they could use the support because they are really the backbone of our.
Do we push enough that shopping online, like say people like you do? Overall, do we push that enough? My impression is that we don't, and people are just getting back to going to the big box stores, whereas the guy up the block whose prices, maybe he charges $1 or $2 more, but he kind of has to because he can't compete with the big box stores. And this could be your friend, your neighbor, if you would like to see him or her or them stay in business. Well, why not stop in and show your support?
Absolutely. And I'm a great champion of the local stores. And quite frankly, there's two local hardware stores on my way to Home Depot. So I have to get something. I always make a point of stopping at the local stores first. If they have it, I'll buy it there. I don't even look at the price. And, then if I fail in both stores, then I'll go to Home Depot. But I try to keep the local dollars local. These people pay taxes. They support the Little League. You can go to them with a raffle ticket, and they'll help you out. They're just a wonderful support for the entire community.
Mm-hmm. Mention the names of those two stores.
Well, we have the Wingdale Hardware Store, and we have H.G. Page. They're not exactly, it's a Home Depot in each direction, so I can stop at one or the other, but I try to stop at both of them. Mm-hmm. But H.G. Page and Wingdale Hardware.
You work with public safety around the county and on the committee also too. A variety of issues there. Are we ready, storm preparedness, for the next big storm when that happens?
The last time Ida, Pauling suffered some damage to a private road, and then two damaged areas to town roads. And the county came out with FEMA. I met with them and the town supervisor, and FEMA is finding ways to help the people on the private road. There is a way that they can get federal money for that repair. They're going to help the town with the both damages. But what I'm getting at is that the third damage was to a little dirt road in Pauling that goes up behind the nature reserve. And it probably 5 cars a day drive on that road. And the field estimate of the damages is $1.5 million to restore that road. I mean, $1.5 million is like 5 years of the town road budget. So the federal government is going to help. But my point there is that you never really know what a storm is going to bring. A storm can do a little bit of damage all over the county or a whole lot of damage in one spot. And my experience, I was town highway superintendent and I was town supervisor. So I've worked with the county for close to 40 years, and I have always found their response to be remarkable. I mean, they will do whatever is in their power to help the towns and villages, in addition to taking care of their own roads, because they have their own problems. So the answer to your question is yes. I think we're as prepared as we possibly can be. The Emergency Response Center is our communication hub, and it's expertly manned. If you've ever listened to the dispatchers, they're superb. I don't know how they keep all of the truck numbers and cars and locations in straight, but they do. And it takes over a year to train them.
I think we have to realize, too, you pointed out about a small street in Pauling that maybe 5 people access on a regular basis. Yet for those 5 people, that's their Taconic Parkway. That's their New York State Freeway personally, and you would not be one of those 5 who would be inconvenienced by your road being blocked in. For example, like you go up Wagner Road, you're going to Pauling High School, for example. That's a small strip of road, but if you live along that strip there, you can't have that blocked in because you really can't get out.
Yeah. The lucky part about this little dirt road is it does go into Wingdale. It's into the town of Dover. So you can get in, but you have to drive about 5 miles to get
out,
so,
right? Whereas they say you can get in, you can never get out. It may not be worth it to try to get out, right? Uh-huh. Yeah. Also on the committee that you serve on, the Public Safety Committee, EMS is always a big topic, a big issue. EMS preparedness around the county right now, knowing what EMS and police departments locally and fire departments and all kinds of public safety workers have had to deal with over the last couple of years now.
It's been difficult, but they've risen to the challenge. I'm a 50-year member of the Pauling Fire Department, so I still stay active down there. So I stay in touch with the fire chiefs and the EMS personnel. It was quite a scramble when COVID first hit, trying to get the PPE, personal protective equipment. But the county came through and provided masks, and eventually the supply lines opened up. But the departments have been very, very careful in their responses. They've developed COVID-specific responses to scenes. They don't all stay together. In the old days, everybody would run into the scene, but now they are dispersed and they have a protocol for doing that. And it's monitored so that the firemen and the victims there's a limited exposure. And, the EMS people are just, I can't praise them enough. They're just assuming that every call they get is a COVID call. They just have to, because first of all, you don't know if somebody has COVID. A lot of the calls do come from people that are infected. And then there's some people that just won't admit it, that they haven't been vaccinated. So EMS has got a really tough job. On the police side, after the march in Pleasant Valley, there was a lot of talk about defunding the police and changing the way we police, and
what they call reimagining policing.
Reimagining, yeah. And I've always felt that the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office has been extremely interested in staying as highly trained as possible. And they were already in the process of doing a comprehensive upgrading of their training. And part of that training is crisis intervention. And the model now is to they haven't done it yet, but they soon will be looking at partnering with the behavioral health personnel. The behavioral health has a crisis intervention team, and if they pair with the sheriff's office and they're able to arrive at a scene with all the tools to diffuse the scene, an understanding of the issues of people that are going through psychosis or alcohol withdrawal or drug addiction or whatever it is, if they can calm the scene and get the person in the car. The county now has a stabilization center, which is a state-of-the-art facility. As a matter of fact, counties throughout the state are coming to look at it with an eye at doing something similar to that. But the police can now take a person who's in distress and take them to the stabilization center over in Poughkeepsie. Previously, the only choices they had were jail, where there are no services, or to the hospital, to the ER, where the hospitals weren't really prepared to handle people in an agitated state. And the hospitals no longer have psych beds like they used to. I mean, every hospital used to have 6 or 7 beds just for these type of people. So now they can go to the stabilization center. The stabilization center is manned 24/7 with counselors. There are beds there. They have the ability to connect with doctors to prescribe appropriate drugs or medicines or treatments. And they have a connection with the Mid-Hudson Hospital, so that if they do have to hospitalize the person, they can do that. But what it does is the person comes out, he doesn't have a jail sentence on his record. So
how serious is the opioid crisis right now in the county?
It's a tragedy. I mean, it's I saw on the news the last couple of days that they're importing counterfeit hydrocodone and oxycodone that has fentanyl in it. And fentanyl, and apparently when I read, the fentanyl is of a high enough dose that it can kill you with one pill, which you might take illegally but innocently, thinking it's oxycodone. And there are a couple of hundred. I don't have the number in front of me, but a significant number of deaths from drug overdoses in Dutchess County every year, and then subsequent hospitalizations, and police, and also you can end up with a record too. So it's a pretty serious thing. I monitor, as a fireman, I monitor the radio frequencies, not all the time, but and it comes up on my phone. That's the way they do that now. Fire service, everybody's phone gets the call. And the number of responses for possible overdoses is scary. I will say that the behavioral and community health department of the county is doing Narcan training. Narcan is a drug which can be administered to bring somebody out of a drug coma. And they're doing that for all the police agencies, fire departments, and anybody else.
Is the situation getting worse, or are we seeing improvement? Or is it a wash right now?
I think it's a wash. I looked yesterday at the statistics, and the last 4 or 5 years, it's been pretty level. But it's still, one is too many. It's just, and it's usually a lot of them are young people, just the beginning of their adult lives. It's a tragedy.
COVID vaccines, that issue is part of public safety, obviously, and we see the issue in New York City where if you teach in a school as of a few days from now, you won't be able to if you don't have at least one vaccine. If you're a healthcare or a hospital worker, you might already be losing your job. Do you think we need, or do you think there will be countywide COVID mandates of the same level as in New York City, or will this continue to be a choice locally?
Well, I'm not going to equivocate. I think that everybody should be vaccinated. And, I could sit down for 20 minutes with people and just show them some of the history, it might change their mind. But they say that lecturing to these people, the people that are not vaccinated, doesn't work. You just they have to come to the understanding on their own. But
right, I've done the lecturing, and it doesn't seem to get anywhere.
It doesn't work. And but I think, and I look back at history. You look back at all of the things that were terrible plagues: cholera, diphtheria, yellow fever, polio. All of these things were solved by complete compliance by the population. And where there wasn't compliance, the government stepped in. And, cholera was spread by bad water. And finally, the municipalities came in and they put in water mains, but they told people, you got to run a pipe to your house. And people didn't like it one bit, but, they had to do it, and they did it. And that pretty much killed that disease, which, was killing hundreds of thousands of people. So
You also work on the County Environmental Committee on the county board. Ed Hauser, representing the 23rd District of Pauling. Also, Beekman and East Fishkill across the southern portion of Dutchess County here on Dutchess Talk Radio. Ed Hauser, open space for decades has been an issue locally. No doubt about that. Open space preservation, preserving farmland locally. We understand that development happens and has happened across the last 40 years and more in the Hudson Valley. I began my career in Orange County in 1979, and I know what the county looked like back then. I know what Dutchess looked like back then. Orange, Rockland, Putnam, etc. I see the differences more than 40 years later today, and yet we see open spaces are preserved. Northern Westchester as well, too. Why is this such a key issue as opposed to somebody who comes along to me and says, John, change with the times. We have to build a condo here. And we realize maybe we don't have to because we may not have adequate drinking water, for example, if we do.
Well put. The earth is a finite size. There's only so much land area. And of that, a very, very small percentage is good land. It's very difficult to live in the Sahara and the Death Valley and the Arctic and the Antarctic. And so we have to be very careful about how we treat the land that we can actually use that actually supports human life. And water is a key example. And it doesn't take much to ruin a water supply. The water, we're lucky in the Harlem Valley, there's actually a river that flows under the valley in a bed of gravel. And you can put a well the village has put some wells in and gotten 600 gallons a minute, because the amount of water is so great. But if somebody upstream starts dumping hazardous waste or chemicals or anything that would be detrimental to drinking water, then that water supply is ruined, and it's really, really hard to bring it back. So Dutchess County, my first involvement with the county government was I was put on the Dutchess County Planning Board, which I served on for 8 years. And Dutchess County Planning Board administers a program for manageable growth. And it's a program where the county partners with New York State Department of Agriculture and the Dutchess Land Conservancy and other local groups, sometimes municipalities, towns, and identifies and then purchases the development rights for farms that meet certain criteria. And I had the great pleasure over the years of being able to go out and visit these farms and see, not only the beauty of them, but also the value of them, the quality of the soil, their part in the watersheds and the aquifer. And so what the process is that the Dutchess Land Conservancy actually solicits applications from farmers, and then they analyze the farm for its the quality of soils, the relationship to other farms, the quality of the water, and the viability of the operation itself. Can it continue to be a farm? Presents that to the county and to the state of New York. And so far in Dutchess County, we have bought the development rights on farms and some strictly open space of 6,335 acres, which can never be developed. And, we're not saying we don't want development, but we are saying that you need to leave these plots of land that are as close to natural as can be. And, you can either let it go wild or it can be a farm. Those are the two ways that you really create a natural environment. So the county legislature puts at least $1 million a year in the budget for this program, and I think it's been very successful.
And let's hope we continue to preserve our quality here in Dutchess County the way we have for decades, and hopefully for years and decades to come, again, knowing that sometimes development does and has to happen and does happen, yet we can still preserve what we have and not really make it look like there was much else going on, even though we might have a 26-story skyscraper filled with condos built in downtown Poughkeepsie. So,
yeah. I mean, there is smart development. I mean, there are ways of developing so that the land is not affected as much as the traditional way of putting all the plots side by side and lots of roads and all that kind of stuff. You can spread it out, and I think a lot of the planning boards throughout the county are very receptive to that when the owners come in, have a clear understanding that the environment is critical.
Ed Hauser, County Board, District 23 here in Dutchess, representing Pauling, Beekman, and East Fishkill. We thank you for joining us on Dutchess Talk Radio. We thank you for your insight and your service for all these years. And I know many more good things are to come as we continue to work out of COVID into 2022. Thank you again, Ed Hauser.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for your patience through everything here today, too. No question and doubt about that. Ed Hauser, we thank you. Here on Dutchess Talk Radio, I'm John Marino. This is the Cup of Joe political show. We are produced by Shark Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built, also by Tompkins Mahopac, banked by Lipolis Electric. Don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis. Also by White Plains Hospital and Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard up and down the Hudson Valley, and Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk in Westchester, working with you throughout the Hudson Valley too. Catch all of our Dutchess Orange, Rockland, Putnam, Westchester, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Shark Creative YouTube.